And we are back with another Radio Mythoverse, official podcast of the Mythoverse. And as always, your hosts, Brett McGowan, writer-creator of Changeling Urban Fairy Tale, and head of public relations and community outreach over at the Mythoverse, and my partner, our head writer, and writer and creator of Mythics, Matt Tren. Say hi, Matt.
Hey, guys.
Okay, so last week we talked about horror TV. I think, though, that was kind of inadvertent, just because, I know we definitely didn't go into that show planning to talk about TV shows with a horror theme, specifically, but it just kind of naturally happened that way. I think it was because I had stuff like Treehouse of Horror, Tales from the Crypt on the brain, and then we brought up stuff like Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street, and that just sort of dovetail into their respective TV shows, but I think we got a lot of good content out of that just because of how much there was to talk about.
Yeah, we definitely did.
Yeah, and so, before we started this up, you and I just sort of thought about, what would be the next logical topic if we're still keeping with this Halloween theme, and, well, video games kind of seem to be the next logical step.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, you and I both love video games, and we've both probably played more than a few spooky ones in our time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before we get into that, I do want to sort of I do kind of want to steal the spotlight and talk about a vampire movie I just saw.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I just saw Shadow of the Vampire. So what, do you know it at all?
It sounds familiar.
Okay, so yeah. Everyone else listening, Shadow of the Vampire, if you don't know it, it's sort of a what-if story. It's centered around the making of the classic horror film Nosferatu. And the what-if here is, what if Max Schreck, the actor who played Count Orlok in Nosferatu, was actually a vampire? That premise alone, that's pretty intriguing.
It is.
But it goes one step further than just that premise. This is not just some clever speculative fiction. It's because of this dynamic that's between F.W. Murnau, played by John Malkovich, and Max Schreck, played by Willem Dafoe. It's a commentary on the war of egos that you sometimes see emerge between creative geniuses in filmmaking, because in Shadow of the Vampire, Malkovich plays Murnau as this micromanaging tyrant of a director. He's that kind of perfectionist director that you hear horror stories about. And Willem Dafoe, he plays Max Schreck as, even though he's a vampire, his cover is that he's a method actor. And all of his eccentricities, you need to indulge him because it's better for his artistry, it's better for his craft. And there's this one scene in the movie where where Murnau is arguing with Schreck, "You are not going to sabotage my movie for your ego." And Schreck looks at him and says, "I don't think this is your movie anymore."
I guess that's all when all hell broke loose.
If I keep going on, I risk spoiling this movie, and I want people to go see it. Now, this movie's a little difficult to track down because I heard it's no longer in print. But let me put it this way, if you just so happen to find it through YouTube search, well, yeah, that's all I'm going to say. If you happen to find it through means other than physical, just freaking watch it, because you don't know when you're going to get another chance to see it. And honestly, I think this is a vampire movie that needs to be seen at least once, because, like I said, it goes beyond just a clever premise. It's that commentary on the war of egos you see in filmmaking sometimes. Like, that's just... Like, I ate that shit up completely.
It sounds like an interesting movie.
Oh, yeah. I will, just, leave you a little something. And we'll just, move on to the real topic at hand. Alright, so, as far as video games go, how about you take the lead?
All right, well, I think the most interesting thing about a lot of horror games is that it's more about how bizarre an action horror game is, since horror is often described as two groups, the monsters and the victims.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, like, the main appeal of most video games is how they empower the player. Like, they make you feel like you're the strongest thing out there. Horror games, they flip that script.
Yep.
Like,
although you got games like Resident Evil that limit your ability to defend yourself.
yeah, but even then, in, like, good Resident Evil games, you should feel helpless at almost all times. Like, sure, like, you've got a gun, but ammo's limited. Sure, you can heal yourself, but ingredients are scarce.
And you've got that bad guy chasing you that's invulnerable.
Yeah. The whole point is, like, even when you've got a means to defend yourself, it still doesn't even the odds in your favor. I would say that is probably the one thing, like, no horror game can afford to get wrong. Like, the player has to feel helpless in some way.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, there's a lot of indie horror games that have been doing that, such as Dead by Daylight, where it's 5 players, one plays as the killer, the others are helpless survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole premise behind it is repair generators and get out.
Yeah, we played that a lot back in the day. Like, and it just plays like with all the killers are like based on different slasher archetypes, and then they started and then they started bringing in real slasher villains.
Yeah, I don't think it was long before they got Leatherface after they debuted the Hillbillies.
Yeah, well, the game got really popular for one. Like, it was like everywhere on Twitch for a while, I think.
And then they brought on board Stranger Things characters.
They brought in the Demogorgon.
Demogorgon. Yep. As well as all the kids from the show.
Uh-huh.
They, interestingly enough, brought in Ash from Evil Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the first time you had one of the licensed characters with a voice actor, who was Bruce Campbell, of course.
Mm-hmm. Obviously. And I think they also got in Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield from Resident Evil.
Well, the base characters are Jill Valentine, Leon Kennedy, Ada Wong, and Rebecca Chambers. With those survivors, they've got alternate characters, such as Jill Valentine gets Claire Redfield.
They don't have Chris?
Oh, they have Chris. Leon gets them.
It would be very weird to bring in Resident Evil characters and not bring in Chris or Claire.
Yeah. Although, if you're wondering which versions of the characters, because I sense Chris Redfield hasn't been in a Resident Evil remake since the first one.
Yeah, the GameCube, the one that was on the GameCube.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's basically Chris Redfield as he's in Resident Evil 5. Yep.
The jacked Chris.
Yep.
Did they do Carlos from Resident Evil 3 as an alternate for Leon?
Yep.
Now that actually surprises me. I did not think anyone still cared about Carlos.
Well, some people do, I guess.
Okay, so was the killer Nemesis?
Yeah, the first one is Nemesis. The second one is Albert Wesker. And I distinguished that with a first name, because there's multiple Weskers in Resident Evil now. And among the DLC that they have with trademark characters, they've got Silent Hill with Pyramid Head and Cheryl Mason, who initially did not have the kind of different character skins. It was, if they did have it, it was for alternate costumes, such as we'll have the Alyssa costume.
What about Heather?
What?
What about Heather?
Well, Cheryl and Heather are basically the same in this.
I can understand starting out with Cheryl. They didn't bring in James?
Not at first, but they have him as an alternate model for Cheryl. Which, to be honest, I think this might end up being the better Silent Hill 2 remake than the ones coming out. Because we know how Konami's going to turn out.
Well, right now they're just publishing it. It's been farmed out to, I think Bloober Team. They did that one Rutger Hauer game, Observer, which I heard was pretty good.
Well, maybe it won't be all that bad.
Yeah. They
did do recently a couple of the weirdest ones, DLC.
Okay.
Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is a character in Dead by Daylight now.
What, is he killing the demon bikers from Mandy?
No, he's Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage, the actor, is in Dead by Daylight as a survivor.
I don't freaking get it.
So they also had him do some lines to say for the game.
I mean, I can buy that. I can buy that. Nicolas Cage almost doesn't say no to anything.
Especially if he gets to have fun with it. I think he wanted to pull Nicolas Cage with this one, since he gets some reaction lines to some of the monsters, such as he yells at Michael Myers.
Yeah, they forgot they brought in Michael. They get Jason too.
No, Jason has the Friday the 13th game.
Oh yeah.
But his reaction is probably one of the funnier ones to Sadako from The Ring, who is a killer in this.
Well, am I going to find out? Am I going to find out there's also Chucky from Child's Play?
No.
That seems like a missed opportunity, in my opinion.
It might be, or it might be that they want too much.
I mean, Chucky would probably be a very broken character, but it'd be fun.
They recently got Ripley and Xenomorph. Which I'm going to be honest, it's quite fun pulling out a sensor flamethrower turret where it lets you know where the alien is. And you can put it down as a turret trap, and then you just let the turret do its thing on the alien.
I also want to bring up Jigsaw, but in the Saw movies you never physically see him.
Yeah.
Although they did make a couple Saw games.
Well, they have Saw as a DLC as well.
Seriously? But like I said, it's kind of limited because, like I said, Jigsaw is never really a physical was never really a physical presence in the movies.
Yeah, which is why for Killer they didn't take Jigsaw, they took the apprentice Amanda. And Detective Tapp is the survivor. Since it was one of the earlier ones, they didn't really do much. They didn't have the renown to get Danny Glover. Do any voice roles?
Or Carrie Elway, probably.
They didn't get him either.
I didn't think so. Yeah, I did come across a review by G-Man of those Saw games, and I think I think it might be the first one. The first one, I think he said, is actually... It's better than you think it would be. Especially for a movie tie-in.
Yeah.
The puzzle... I mean... The Death Trap puzzles, they're not that complicated, but honestly, like, considering it was a movie tie-in, it could have turned out a lot worse, was the impression I came away with.
Yeah, look at Dragon Ball Evolutions. Video game tie-in.
I don't even need to look at it. I can already imagine how awful it was.
They didn't even retitle a Dragon Ball Z game. It was just Dragon Ball Evolution. Some developer had the misfortune of making it.
God damn. I think there might have been like one or two more Saw games made, and they weren't as good, though.
Can't really follow up with the first one. Saw is one of those very limiting type of adaptations.
If we get Salem in here, he'll have he could talk about the entire series here for hours.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. He is definitely our horror in general buff.
Yeah, but he loves the Saw movies. He's like unironically loves them. Loves most of them. I think like there's like maybe one or two that he'll probably say are bad, but like the series as a whole, he loves it.
We should probably try to get him before the month's end.
Probably.
So for his opinion on Saw 10.
If you're talking about Spiral, well, I saw that with it.
No, the new one.
Oh my god. Really? They made another Saw movie.
Yeah, I hear it's not that bad.
Huh.
I'm not going to see it, but I hear it's not bad.
Making a note of that. Alright. As far as, like, my experience when it comes to, like, horror and video games, like... I've played a fuck ton of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which... Not exactly a horror game, I get it, but... It's a video game about vampires. I think it fits enough.
Well, it's a horror RPG.
Yeah. I mean, the Ocean House Hotel is one of the scariest game levels I've ever played. But I'm probably getting ahead of myself, so yeah. Alright, so everyone who doesn't know, Vampire the Masquerade, that's a tabletop RPG where your player character is a vampire. Most of the time, you've recently been embraced, which is what happens when a human gets turned into a vampire. And now you've just found out that there's a whole secret society of vampires, and they run the world pulling the strings from behind the scenes. And there's this apocalypse prophecy called Gehenna about how these really ancient vampires called the Antediluvians are supposedly coming back. And Bloodlines is kind of based off of that. It was the last game that its developer ever made before they went under. Holy crap, when that game actually came out, though, it was jank as all hell. Like, to the point of being unplayable, I think it was that bad. Most versions you can get are much more stable, play much better. But you still do encounter the occasional bug and glitch.
Yeah. I think a lot of games will continue to have certain bugs and glitches. Not if
they're coded by John Carmack.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Bloodlines, like your character, like they get embraced, they become a vampire, but it turns out your sire did it without permission from the city prince, which is like the head vampire in a particular city. Look, if you draw up comparisons to this whole vampire society and the mafia, you're not that far off of how this works. There's a lot of politicking, there's a lot of backstabbing, there's rules about what you can and can't do. So yeah, your sire embraced you without permission from the prince, and so they get executed. The prince is about to have you executed too, but someone speaks out for you in the crowd, and to save face, the prince allows you to live. And now you've got to navigate the world of the vampires. And not only deal with rivals within your own faction, but... Because, yeah, Masquerade's also got vampire factions. There's the Camarilla, which want to keep everything hush-hush. They want to be secretive. They want to stay below the radar. Then you got the Sabbat, who they want to be a lot more heavy-handed. They want to directly rule over humans. Because they think vampires are superior, so they should be the dominant species. And then you got the Anarchs, who just say fuck off to everybody. You got about like several clans to choose from, and I always usually pick Gangrel because that's my favorite one. And they're the more animalistic kind of vampire. You also got Bruja, they're like vampire punks. Unx Ventrue, they're the more aristocratic. Okay, if I keep going on, it'll take too long. But yeah, it is a pretty good game, even with all its jank. And actually, holy crap, it's actually got one of the most impressive voice casts I've ever seen. Like, it's got Gray Delisle, it's got D. Bradley Baker, John DiMaggio, Phil Lamar. Like, it's a literal who's who of video game and animation voice actors. And like I said, then you get into some of the levels like Ocean House Hotel, which is absolutely creepy. The Ocean House Hotel is like if you turn The Shining into a video game level. That's all I'm going to say, because you really got to experience it firsthand.
Obviously.
Yeah. And then there's another level later where you have to take on a werewolf. And, by the way, you could empty your gun into it. It's not going to stop it. You cannot harm this werewolf with any weapon you've got on you. You have to find a way to use the environment against it. Will not say how. Yeah, I occasionally replay like Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines just because like it's probably one of the best interpretations of a video game for World of Darkness. They haven't exactly had the best track record with games. I mean, like, I've heard about Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood being kind of mid, haven't played it yet. And then there's Bloodlines 2, which seems to keep getting canceled and then revived. I'm not holding that hope.
It's like a vampire of its own right.
Yeah, I'm not holding out hope that game's going to be any good if it finally does come out.
Just like Duke Nukem Forever and Aliens, Song of Marine.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like the last studio Bloodlines 2 got handed off to, it's a dev that has no experience making RPGs.
Oh yeah, that's the big problem right there.
Yeah. Even assuming it does make it to market, there's no way it's going to be good.
No.
I don't think I'd be very surprised if anyone still has hope for that game at this point.
You never know. There's still people who want Half-Life 3.
Newell should just give it to them just to prove to them how much of a monkey's paw that is.
Yeah.
Not that he would anyway. He's making too much money off of Steam.
Yeah, why would you mess with the cash cow? Honestly, though, if they were actually to do Half-Life 3, they need to remake the other two just to make it look like they are made in the same era.
Yeah, it's just funny because earlier today I saw someone post a SpongeBob meme, and had Fallout 3 and Team Fortress 2. Fallout 3 is like, hey, I'm getting my next sequel, Team Fortress 2. Yay, I'm next. Fallout 3, hey, I doubt it. Although in fairness, at least they keep updating TF2.
Yeah. Well, another on our list of games to talk about is a game that's getting a sequel this month, Alan Wake.
Yeah.
Which in a way is relevant to us because it's about a writer.
Yeah. Alan Wake. I know that was made by the people who did the first two Max Payne games, and I actually, Yeah, I caught a video actually that they've got a character in the next Alan Wake who basically is a stand-in for Max Payne. Well, to be fair, Sam Lake was the original model for Max Payne.
Yeah, they do a lot of crossovers with their actors, looking like their characters.
And they can't do that. They can't do that with Max Payne, though, just because Rockstar owns the IP completely now.
Yeah. So it's interesting with Alan Wake because it's been described as the first game in a connected universe that includes Control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alan Wake, I was kind of aware of. Control. That one, I think, flew under my radar.
I guess start with Control first. Basically, you start off with a young woman named Jessie Faden. Yeah, that was bad.
I'm keeping that in. It's funny.
Yeah, so play as Jessie Faden, a young woman who wants to find her brother who was effectively kidnapped by a shadowy government organization called the Federal Bureau of Control, only to realize that Control is under siege from this supernatural force, and she has been chosen as the next director. And it's one of those games that, if it was a serious horror, the characters would definitely be underpowered, but this goes to all-out insanity of how the main character has all these powers. Once she gains what's known as the service pistol, is basically a conduit for this other group called the Board, who we don't really see, and I'm fairly convinced they're Lovecraft monsters. After that, it basically becomes clear out the headquarters for Control, which is this equally supernatural building called the Oldest House. And you pretty much discover that throughout the game that there was some inside help with this invasion. Not going to get any spoilers away. Mm-hmm. Just that there are certain mysteries that won't be solved in the game.
And you said it's connected to Alan Wake. How do you need to play Alan Wake to understand what's going on in Control?
Not really. The only real connection that they make is with one of the DLC, which basically was a announcement that Alan Wake 2 was introduction. But the protagonist, Alan, does not appear in the DLC. He just, I guess in a way, it's very weird how it's set up, because it makes it seem like you're in an Alan Wake novel as he's writing it.
I get the sense there's a lot of meta commentary in this.
It's a weird game, but then again, if you do play the game, it's a lot like the Finnish janitor Aki, who is himself a very weird man, but he's also a mystery in his own right.
Kind of still living in these little meta bits, though. That kind of doesn't surprise me, because there were moments in the Max Payne games where Max would sort of wink at the fourth wall.
Yeah.
There was even one whole sequence where he picks up a phone call and someone tells him, "Hey Max, you're in a video game," and he's like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Well, the whole going into Alan Wake, that's the whole power that Alan has, is that anything he writes comes true. So effectively, this whole story for the first game revolves around him fighting against this supernatural dark power, and basically just writing his way into, figuring out ways to write things into this story that, honestly, I don't think I can really describe. It does seem like Remedy likes doing starting off these games with these initially very small, in comparison to the rest of the game, stories. Alan needs help, so him and his wife go to this retreat to get him help. Something weird happens. He can't find his wife, so he has to go searching for her.
Yeah, like when I first started hearing about Alan Wake, I mean, like, I kind of had the impression it was a horror game based on what I was seeing. Having played it, was I right about that?
Yeah, and it also basically the first time I've seen among the bonus material that's been released since then was the Alan Wake script.
Mm-hmm.
And the script is 312 pages long.
What the hell? As far as I know, that game only got released, at least on Xbox 360.
It's also on PC.
Really?
They've since remastered it. Alan Wake 2 is also a controversial game because there's no physical edition that's going to be coming with it.
Oh, that's a problem.
According to Remedy, it's the reason for that is so they can keep the price at $60.
Oh, I see. So this was not something like their publisher twisted their arm on?
No, it's something they just want to keep the cost down. When you look at it from this perspective, from that perspective, they are trying to do right by their customers.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, to a number of their customers, it looks like they're going to make it so that they can't play, the players can't play the games anymore.
Yeah, but like that's a whole other discussion. But I'll just say, like, I usually kind of fall on the side of physical media is a necessity, because you should be able to own the things you purchase, and physical media is the best way to have ownership. Not only that, we've seen multiple times that digital editions of games can later get altered in ways that are not necessarily for the better.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I think if you're to buy it off of GOG.com, it's a better way to keep yourself protected from that. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't just download into the launcher for GOG Galaxy. You can download the install file for the game, so that you can install the game without the launcher. So there are ways, it's just that Steam's not doing them.
Yeah.
Or any other of the launcher-based games.
I mean, you've got the only other one that comes to mind is the Epic Game Store, which I actually know a guy who has an Epic Game Store account, and he has gotten games off there. He's never actually bought any of them. He just gets the games when they're there for free.
Yeah, I think that just really kills any game that's exclusive to the store, because why buy the game if you're going to get it for free later on?
Alright, well, if you could get it for free later on, I think it's kind of decided at random.
Yeah, which is a headway to the next to another game,
Mm-hmm.
the Evil Dead game.
Let me guess. You got it off the Epic Game Store.
Yes. You wanna know how?
Did you get it for free too?
Yes.
Oh my god.
So, I feel I did buy all the DLC in compensation, and played quite a bit of it. I think the recent thing where I decided to stop making content for Evil Dead the game is because of the Epic Store.
They had to be exclusive, and there just wasn't any growth of the game because it was on the Epic Store.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I now have something to point at to why games should not be exclusive to that store. It is a good game. It's a cooperative action game that also has a single player component to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can play with friends or play by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And there's often teams of 4. You can play as any character you want. But you know who's in every single category?
Ash.
Ash Williams.
Well, who else are they going to play as?
Well, there are other characters in the Evil Dead franchise.
Yeah, but Ash is the only one who matters.
There's also the Evil Dead 2013 characters, the Army of Darkness characters.
Like I said, Ash is the only one anyone cares about.
I won't say that. But it is. I just find it funny that they have Ash in every role, including healer.
That is hilarious.
They make it look like the Ash is this uber badass, which he is.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't think he can really heal people unless if it deals with the receiving end of a boomstick. Basically, the gameplay is simple. You have objectives to meet, and then you have to fight the boss, which are demons who are trying to impede your progress. And you got players on the demon side who are going to be there just to make your life miserable. It's all about survival and defeating the demons. You have weapons that are exclusive to certain characters, such as if you're playing as Ash, but not the first Evil Dead movie Ash, you can pick up a chainsaw. Depending on which character you're playing as, you have basically weapons that you're better at, such as with Mia from Evil Dead 2013, she's there with machetes. Or if you play as the King from Army of Darkness, you're better with longswords. And there's a mechanic to it where I guess you could probably say it's lunacy. It's based on your sanity level. And if it gets too high up, you can be controlled by the Deadites. And so you basically turn traitor against your team. So this is a very treacherous game to play.
Now, speaking of a game where you're playing a badass who can do it all, not a horror game, but I think it fits the theme enough. Do you remember Batman Arkham Asylum?
Yeah.
Out of all the games in the Arkham series, I think that one might be my favorite just because the atmosphere of Arkham Asylum is rendered so well in that game. The second you take control of Batman, you are on enemy turf, you are by yourself, and everyone on this island wants a piece of you.
Jeez.
And you have to navigate it all. And not only that, there are a couple sequences, and it's not just all the thugs, there's also all the villains in Batman's Rogues Gallery, and like the one with Killer Croc, that one's pretty tense, not because it's a good fight or anything, you don't actually have to fight Killer Croc, but you see, you have to go in hunting down these spores to make an antidote for a toxin or something. I forget the exact reason why. And they only grow in the part of the asylum that Croc has made his lair. And it's all these sewer tunnels. And you have to walk across these platforms very carefully. Otherwise, Croc is going to know you're there and attack. And then once he starts ramping it up, you have to stay one step ahead of him. Otherwise, he's going to get you. And if he breaches and starts running at you, you've got seconds to react by just using like a batarang to activate an electroshock collar around him to force him back into the water. Honestly, like the scariest part of the whole game is when you get hit with Scarecrow's fear toxin and you go through all these hallucinations. Like, the level design changes up completely, and it can even screw with the mechanics on you. It's probably the closest it ever comes to actually being a horror game.
It's funny because Control has probably the opposite of that floor level.
Oh.
Where the Ashtray Maze is basically, it feels more like a Matrix movie of how a Matrix action sequence where you have these what looks like inside of a hotel, and the corridors just move around. Basically, opening up doorways, closing doorways, switch everything upside down, and as you're fighting enemies, you've got this rock song called "Take Control" from the in-universe band Old Gods of Asgard. And yeah, basically it's you run through, kill bad guys, you do the platform stuff, and then you're on the other side while you've got this rock song playing throughout the entire thing.
And that's all an extended hallucination sequence?
It's not a hallucination, it's more of the dimension you enter. The oldest house has pocket dimensions that the organization's have been researching. And before you enter, you have to find the janitor Aki right before he goes on vacation. That dimension is not accessible to just anyone. You have to have his Walkman. And I think what happens to that song is what lets you go through it.
Control sounds a very weird game.
It's a weird game, but it's also fun. It's a game I definitely recommend.
Arkham Asylum, I mean, like, aside from, like, the final Joker fight, I mean, I'm not spoiling anything, I think everyone knows about it. That's definitely a game I recommend, and like I said, I think it's probably the best out of the whole Arkham series, just because it just captures the feel of the Asylum so well.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd have to say that when it comes to games these days, probably it's no longer American studios that are pushing the boundaries.
No.
They tend to keep it safe.
Yeah, it's the European ones that are kind of really getting a little more out there.
Well, Finland, I don't think is that close to. I think it's closer to Poland than anywhere else.
Finland is in Scandinavia, and I think they're still, and I think they're in the EU, so they count as European.
Either way, I think a lot of the Americanization is there, even though they base their games in the U.S.
Yeah, because even the Japanese studios, like, they've kind of found a mode they're comfortable in. Like, Nintendo's just gonna do what Nintendo's always done. They're not really gonna take all that many risks.
Yeah.
And you know what?
I forgot to mention this. Alan Wake takes place in Washington State.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go on a I am gonna go out on a limb and say Sam Lake is a huge David Lynch fan.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Why? Because Twin Peaks is in Washington.
Thinking about now, Alan Wake does seem very much like if David Lynch had a huge budget, he'd make Alan Wake.
That would be interesting, but yeah. A lot of European studios, like, they are kind of really being a lot more risky, a lot more experimental. They're definitely trying new things. Like my current favorite game right now, Deep Rock Galactic, that's made by a Danish developer.
Yeah, that's also something I recently realized, that a lot of the imagination that used to be applied to movies are now going over to games. because of how stagnant the movie industry has become.
Yeah, but that's a whole other topic, and let's not end up end up on a tangent.
Yeah. Actually, you know something? I just realized something.
Yeah, what?
Alan Wake would be made by David Lynch, but Control would be made by Chris Carter.
Huh. That is an interesting way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
My library. I mean, only other two games I got that could probably still fit within the Halloween theme is Quake, which I've played a little bit of, which I know it's an action shooter, but it pulls a lot from Lovecraft horror, and plus Sandy Peterson contributed a lot of monster designs from Call of Cthulhu, so I think it fits. I mean, I don't need to talk about Quake. I don't need to talk about Quake. Everyone knows how good Quake is.
But you know something?
What?
We're going to get people upset because you're saying Quake, but not Doom.
Okay, well, guess what? Doom. Everyone who loves Doom more, guess what? Quake is the game John Carmack always wanted to make with Doom, but couldn't because the tech wasn't there at the time. Look, I know, Doom is a classic. Probably single-handedly invented the FPS genre, but Quake was where it probably got perfected.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah. Only other one I got. I have not played this game. I'm kind of ashamed to admit it. I have Grim Fandango. Yeah, that one I'm sure everyone's at least heard of. You know, it's one of those LucasArts point-and-click games. The main character's like a talking skeleton. Like I said, I don't know a lot about Grim Fandango because I haven't played it yet. I didn't, and I only have it because someone gifted it to me once. I have not cracked it open yet. I know its reputation. I've heard it's a good game.
In terms of other games, and there's also one that was basically considered a masterpiece back when it was out, but then had sequels that just brought it down, and a pair of movies by Louis Ball.
I know where.
I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. They don't.
Yep. Alone in the Dark.
To be honest, the last Alone in the Dark game, the one from 2007 or so, I probably got it wrong. Probably got the date wrong. That last game, I think, did more damage than any of the Uwe Boll movies. The Uwe Boll movies. Yeah, the Uwe Boll movie could at least be separated as its own thing.
Yep.
Yeah. I did not play that Alone in the Dark game, though, but everything I heard about it was awful.
Yeah. Was it about the descendants of the original main characters?
I don't know. I think there might have been like a twist somewhere in the game where it tried to tie into the original or something, and it did it in a really clumsy way. Oh, and it also went for this sort of episodic approach to storytelling.
Oh yeah, sounds like the 2010s to 2020 way of doing things.
Yeah.
For some games it worked, for others it did not.
Mm-hmm. And also it tried doing that real-time inventory mechanic. Yeah, like your entire inventory was like inside your jacket, and you could actually look it up. But it just, you know, like I sort of get what it's going for. It's trying to increase the immersion, but it just doesn't work. Like real-time inventories, I've never seen. I don't think I've ever seen a real-time inventory that worked well.
Well, based on the demo they released for the new Alone in the Dark game, It does have promise to be good.
I've also heard that it got David Harbour from Stranger Things in this.
Yep. So if anyone wants to play as David Harbour, you can definitely you definitely have something to look forward to.
And let's be honest, they can't possibly do worse than that last one.
No, it's a very simple game. You investigate a haunted mansion with psychological horror involved.
Yeah, I know someone out there's gonna say never. Matt even said this to me, but there are certain bads once you hit them, like you've basically got nowhere but up to go.
And boy, does Alone in the Dark have a pretty deep low to go up from.
Yeah, like you cannot possibly. I would be very shocked if you can somehow do worse than that last game did. Like, it would have to be done on purpose at this point.
Yeah.
And aside from the new Alone in the Dark, there's also been a lot of buzz about a remake for Silent Hill 2, which...
It's a maybe.
Yeah, that one... Now look, much has been made about the current state of Konami, and for good reason, but Konami is only publishing it. They've got, as far as I know, developments being done by Bloober Team. And if you don't know them, they did that cyberpunk horror game with Rutger Hauer called Observer, which I heard was pretty good. This one probably could turn out good.
Yeah. Right now, there's no release date for it yet.
Yeah, but they're also working on a remake for Metal Gear Solid 3. So. Yeah, I know that's not a horror game, but I think it's kind of showing like what Konami's priorities are right now. Like they kind of want to. They're putting out remakes of some of the games that people still like.
Basically the same thing that Square Enix is doing.
Yeah. So I guess if we want to tie back into the horror theme, I mean, like how long until they actually do a remake of Castlevania?
Based on what I've seen about the Netflix show, nobody wants that.
Oh yeah, nobody seems to like that new Castlevania show.
If it's anything, I have to say it's because of how well the Resident Evil remakes have been doing.
Also, considering how the last Lords of Shadow game performed, I would not be surprised as if Konami's got no plans to do another Castlevania game.
Yeah. Unless if it's a remake they can get right.
It's like, what would that possibly mean? A 3D remake of Symphony of the Night? Like, how could you even?
Well,
could that even be done? Could that even really be done? Because Symphony of the Night's gameplay seems to only really work in 2D.
Who knows? Honestly, with a lot of the remakes, they probably really shouldn't be doing them. It takes away from from the new things they could be making.
Yeah, but we all know the classic line. But these things have a built-in audience. They're easier to sell.
Yeah. Well, Capcom's doing Resident Evil remakes and new Resident Evil games, so what's their excuse?
To be fair, like I said, Resident Evil's got a lot of brand recognition behind it, so remake or new game, that's a fairly easy sell.
Yeah. But same could be said about Final Fantasy.
Fair, also true. Who knows, maybe if Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid do well enough, Konami might dust off Castlevania.
It's possible. Hopefully they're good. I'm not going to root for it to be bad.
Oh yeah, definitely not. So coming up at the end, we'll see you guys next week, and maybe by then I'll get a little time with Grim Fandango and I can actually talk about it. I mean, I'm kind of surprised even you didn't have anything to say about that. Like, what, did you miss it on that one too?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I don't even think I have it in my library.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, if you have to ever play one vampire game in your life, pick up Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. That's a game
Absolutely.
Yeah, no one's ever going to regret playing that game. You got any final words you want to leave us with, Matt?
Well, just whatever you do, don't make any really bad games, and on the same scale as Lord of the Rings Gollum.
Yeah, don't make a game so bad it kills your studio. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Follow us at the Mythoverse on Twitter. Hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. And if you want to help us out, hop on over to the Mythoverse Patreon. Link is in the description.
We'll see you guys next time.